Iceland is an island created by undersea volcanic eruptions millions of years ago and is approximately the size of the state of Indiana. Unlike Indiana's 6.7 million population, Iceland is sparsely populated with about 360,000, with two-thirds of those in the capital metropolitan area. We began our trip in the capital, Reykjavik, then 5 stops before returning to Reykjavik 6 nights later. Sadly, due to a report of a positive COVID result on the Viking ship several stops ahead of us, Icelandic authorities did not allow us off the ship in Akureyri on the north coast, but the issue was resolved by the end of that day and we proceeded overnight to the next port. Iceland lies atop the ridge created by the separation of the North American and European tectonic plates, which are separating at 2 centimeters per year. That means Iceland widens by a foot each 15 years. And we actually walked between the 2 plates. We were in Reykjavik in mid-July, so the Pride Month celebrations were still evident. The Lutheran church in the middle is massively plain with huge organ pipes inside. The statue in front of Leif Erikson and its base was a gift of the American people in 1930, with Alexander Calder designing. And there were several places to stop and enjoy libations. No comment. We visited this museum on the last, not the first day. Since we had a late flight, Viking made sure we had things to fill the day. Our ship, placed into service in 2020, has a capacity for 930 passengers and 400 plus crew. On our trip, Viking was in the process of ramping back up towards normal, so only 397 passengers, but still 400 plus crew. So we were well looked after. All of the fjords we docked in have deep enough water to accommodate the ship's draft. Our stateroom, a careful walk on a wet deck, and a brief pause at the pool. Sunny day 5 allowed for beverage escapades on the Aquavit terrace, a quick hole-in-one, and listening to a string duet during high tea. Helen with a native Norwegian dress on display, Charles tasting a specialty beverage. Very talented musicians and vocalists in the Star Theater on board. Are we surprised that Charles tried out the spotlight? Food on board was great and met or exceeded our expectations from having cruised with Viking before. There were 2 snack bars, a very upscale World Cafe buffet, and 2 specialty restaurants, the Chef's Table on the left and Manfredi's Italian on the right. Who doesn't like Italian? Apparently not even Norsemen and women. Notice the wine glasses are always topped off. High tea, very filling. The title of this slide speaks to the fact that by the time we awoke at 5 to 6 a.m. to take these shots, the sun had been up for about 3 hours. Our trip to Vigur Island was fascinating. It is the home to a colony of 40,000 plus puffins. Off-season, these puffins and their offspring fly to refuge in Newfoundland, almost 1,800 miles to the southwest. Vigure Island has been inhabited since at least 1164. For most of the time since, inhabitants have made the island a hospitable nesting place for the common eider duck, source of eider down, one of nature's best insulating materials. We learned of the laborious process to collect and process for market, and now understand why products made from eider down are so expensive. A flock of black guillemots assemble on a 200-plus-year-old stone wall. Tern sticks were good protection from the Arctic terns flying over the fields where their nested eggs and hatchlings were. The Arctic tern's seasonal migration to the Antarctic region, some 44,000 miles away, is the longest known animal migration path. Our guide on Vigure Island, the farmer, answered a question about notches seen in the mountains we encountered throughout our touring. Our meal of Icelandic lamb in a restaurant in this old fish warehouse was preceded by an appetizer of shark, dried halibut, and a shot of their version of moonshine. Notice the pan-fried puffin menu item. Not sure whether that was real or tongue-in-cheek. Helen stands next to an exhibit of granite egg sculptures, positioned on top of concrete blocks previously supporting pipes for loading fish oil onto ships. On the right, that is not, by the way, the Gorton fisherman. Instead, he is an interpreter explaining the hard life of small, remote fishing settlements. Geothermal pools were a common sight. Occasionally, geysers were present. Imported as ground cover to retain the nominal topsoil on the island, this stuff, while much prettier than our kudzu, has likewise taken over and is now a nuisance in some places. Near the end of a longish bus ride, our guide assured all us seniors there would be toilet facilities at our next stop, bolted to the hillside. Often the waterfalls seem to originate out of the side of mountains, fed by underground streams or melting snow.
Probably if you walk back there, you could even get a better picture. Stora smile, how
One of the major must-sees on our trip was this World War II museum on the inland tip of a fjord on the east coast of Iceland, dedicated to the British and then American troops who set up here during the war. While we don't think this is definitively where Helen's dad served in Iceland during the war, seeing the Quonset huts against the mountains gave us a feel for how Spartan the existence was during his time here. He had one of the most demanding jobs, keeping the troops entertained and in touch with family back in the States. Oops! Upon unpacking our walking shoes, we found we brought parts of Iceland back in the shoe treads. Are we in trouble for not having declared that to Customs and Border Patrol upon returning to the States? Just asking.